Hi, I'm Becky.
And I'm Lindsay, and we're here today talking about trust. And that everybody talks about their business, what they do. But ultimately, we're all in the same business.
Oh, that's such a cliche saying.
I know.
We're all in the same business. We're in the business of trust. Everyone's saying it.
Everyone says it. It's a very, very hot topic everywhere.
But it is true.
But it's true. So we just want to talk about it today and break it down and why it's so important to us, really.
And actually how the arts can help build that trust, because there are so many things that we use and we teach that can help you with building that trust, because body language can impact it, how you sound with your voice can impact it, the words you use, how you use those words, the emotional intent behind it all of that plays so much into it.
Yeah. So why is trust so important?
Because ultimately people buy people,
and
you're not going to buy it from someone who you go, he's a bit dodgy.
And take it back even further than that. People work for people. People grow for businesses because they're committed to the business and the people that are part of that business.
Yeah, actually, when you look at it within the business and HR side, it is that middle management. If you can't get that middle management or top management sorted, all your ground force will go. Not because of the company, but because of how they're being managed.
And you take that even further down into where it all starts. It's education, it's parenting, nursery providers. Every bit of growth, every bit of development, every bit of forming a relationship comes from trusting somebody and trusting your peer or your mentor or whatever age it's at. And we look a lot at some of the students we've worked with and people I've worked with in the past, particularly students that are disaffected, and people can get them to work, people can get them to engage. Why do some people get them to engage other than others? It's down to the relationship. It's down to that trust that very vulnerable young child has with that person. They've made a connection. So in its simplest form, it's about that relationship.
It is.
And it's about trusting each other, that you've got clear boundaries there. It's really important.
Yeah, boundaries
really
are very,
important,
very important
to build trust, and to build trust in different kind of settings and scenarios. But ultimately, nothing's going to work. Your team isn't going to grow. Your business isn't going to grow internally in terms of the staff development. You as a person aren't going to grow. The money, the bank account's not going to grow if there's not trust there between you all. So how do we get it? How do we build trust? Should we start with workforce or with clients?
Ooh. How about just general human interaction?
Oh, I like it.
We've stripped it right back, so let's build it up, trust from human interaction.
Okay. Yeah, because actually that's at the heart of all of it. That's all it is. So what is trust?
It is how you interact with another human being. Are you going to give them a smile? Are you going to ask them how they are? Are you going to listen to them? Not just ask the question and then just nod, because that's the dumb thing to do.
Are you going to take the time to notice their reaction or their body language or their interactions with you, which actually enables you to read how they're truly feeling rather than just what they're saying to appease you or keep you happy because they're worried? So you're going to take time to notice. So how do you do all these things? Ooh.
Open questions.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Key for it all. Open questions. And it doesn't matter if you're dealing with someone on a person-to-person level.
Yep.
If you're dealing with it to try and sell them something, if you're doing it to work with them as a student teacher, and so you have that authority over them. Doesn't matter what part of it is, the questions need to be open, because you're never going to learn anything about someone else if you ask a closed question.
Yeah.
What makes an open question though? Because people will talk about
people will talk about open and closed questions.
But what is an open question? What's a closed question?
So an open question is where there is not necessarily a definitive answer or a closed response or a single answer response. It's engaging in a two-way conversation. So I could go, Becky, you okay today?
Yep.
That's a closed question. Or I could say, how are you doing today?
Now this is where I could answer in different ways.
Yeah, I know.
And this is where then the other things come into play. So me being me, I will normally just go, I'm fine. So in that sense, that question's still closed.
So you think you've opened it, but it's not closed. So you go, how are you feeling about the weather today, Becky?
It's pretty crap, really. It is. It's horrid outside today.
Yeah. But it's just because you're opening it up slowly. Do you see how it's gone from just closed off to, she could be a little bit closed, to open it a bit further. Or your back we had a nice massage yesterday. How's your back feeling today?
So sore today.
Whereabouts is it sore?
See, we're starting to delve in. Get those answers. So for me at the moment, my shoulders are really, really killed.
What seemed like a good idea, she's regretting. No, we're not. But
no, so needed.
So yeah, it's keeping that open conversation. It's and at the same time as having the open questions, it's also about active listening.
And because of that active listening, you then go on to another question which opens it up even further, and you're digging down. You're not digging wide, you're digging down. And in business terms, it's root cause analysis. In building relationships just with people on a personal level, it's about building that relationship. It's showing you're taking an interest in them and what they're saying. Not what you want, but what they're saying and what they're giving you.
And I think if we talk about the active listening a little bit more, so we talked about the questions, people think they're listening, but what you give out creates so many blocks and barriers for them to not trust you. So for example, a lot of people have these on their wrists now.
Oh, those
smartwatches.
Yeah.
So you're having a conversation with someone, you're opening up how you're feeling about a work situation. I'm finding this really tricky. And in the middle of a sentence, they do that. If that immediately makes the person sitting opposite you go, oh, they're not even in the room with me. They're somewhere else. Because then your brain, whether you like it or not, the eyes then go because you've thought about it, you've registered it, and then you kind of clock back in. Yeah, so I kind of get what you're saying, but they don't really. They end up giving you some kind of nonsense response because they're not really engaged, because they've been distracted elsewhere, or silly things like the people coming in and out of the room while you're talking to the person, or the telephone going, or your phone going. Like, I'll have my phone, I'll flip it the other way around sometimes so I can't see it, so you can't see the notifications pop up, because as soon as you see the notifications pop up, you look over. And as soon as you've looked at that, you might be there with them and have every intent of being there, but because you're having those other things come in, every time you distract and you're not actively listening, it puts up a barrier, it puts up a barrier, it puts up a barrier, and they walk away thinking you don't care. And we see that with students that we've worked with, that they've had those experiences in the past, and work colleagues as well. So it's any sort of human interaction, active listening and being 100% focused on that conversation is so important. Whether it's a professional conversation, somebody coming to you about their well-being, how they're feeling, personal struggles, anything.
Now, one of the things we're taught from school age upwards is part of active listening is you look at a person. Now, if you're like me, I hate looking at people. It's not because I don't like you or anything like that. I really struggle. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Now, my little top tip, you can look at someone and make it look like you're looking at them without looking at them.
Yep, 100%. We do this all the time. Nose or forehead.
Yep.
Yeah. Just look at the centre of the face.
You don't have to look at their eyes.
You don't have to look at their eyes, but it's towards them. Because, yeah.
It's disconcerting. And when you've got someone who's in front of you who may be neurodivergent and actually they struggle with eye-to-eye contact and they have to look away, if you're trying to maintain eye contact with them, you feel more unsure about it. Yeah. They're trying their hardest to do it, not realising you're not feeling comfortable with it.
So here comes the other thing for you to have trust. You've actually got to take the time first to know the person that you're having that conversation with, to build the trust and what their needs are. Because you might perceive that they're being rude to you because they're not looking at you. No, they just can't do it. And they shouldn't have that expectation to do it to be heard.
And that's where your reading of body language comes into play, because if it's the first time you've met them, you've got to not go, well, they're just being rude. You've got to think, hang on, are they being rude, or what else is going on? And you should always ask what else is going on before you say anything else.
And that comes to taking the time to look and see and read the bigger picture, and taking it slowly, not going straight in with the questions, not going straight in with finding out what it is they've come for. It is taking the time to see how you can settle the person, see how you can engage with them, see how they're comfortable, see if they're comfy. Yeah. Even as daft as that, are you all right there? Do you want to sit here instead? Giving them the option of where they want to sit in the room, rather than, well, that's your chair and they're going in that chair opposite the desk. Like, where should we sit?
And sometimes we think it's polite by letting someone go first.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's very insecure in themselves, they don't want to go first, and that will put them very much on the back edge.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just going, you go first, would you like to go first? Would you like me to go first?
Again, open it up. Give the option.
Don't keep it so it's a yes or no. Give them the choice.
Because then that equally means that nobody's under pressure. So otherwise, if the pressure's put on straight away, everything's so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that, unfortunately, there is no right or wrong.
There isn't.
There is no right or wrong way to this. You know, you're going to get it wrong, you're going to make mistakes, but equally it's just about taking time and stepping back a little bit and just getting to know the person in front of you.
And the first way, from my experience with teaching students, doesn't matter if it's one-to-one, it doesn't matter if they're top end,
Mm-hmm.
grassroots, wherever, you always ask, how are you doing today?
Mm-hmm.
And don't ask, how are you doing today?
Mm-hmm.
Because you do not know what's going on in their life. If you ask about today, you keep it specific to that moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
which means they can feel more comfortable with that because they can cope with that if they've got something on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It means they don't have to feel obliged to tell you everything else because you're dealing with one moment in time.
And the other thing that I have that goes with that is you put yourself on a level playing field with them. So when I meet new students for the first time, I'm very open and honest with them as well. This isn't just about them meeting a new adult in their life that's going to come and help them. It's like, right, I'm here to meet you today and learn about you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a bit nervous about this because I'm not really sure what makes you tick yet, so I need to find out. So do you want to know some stuff about me first? And they immediately go, oh yeah. So then I always give the students a little bit of me first, because by giving them a little bit of me, they know who they're talking to, and then they can then open up a little bit more. And that's quite a scary prospect to some people, particularly if you're in a position of management or leadership or even teacher student. It's very scary, and people go, well, you can't give a bit of you. Well, no, you can. You have to, because you're trying to create a relationship, and a relationship is a two-way streak. It's about two people working together to get the working together to get the best possible outcome for that individual. But ultimately, if you're the person that's nurturing, mentoring, coaching, you're there because you care about that other person too and want to get the best out of them.
So if we take it back to people by people,
yeah.
If you're not giving a bit of yourself, how are you going to get them to trust you?
Mm-hmm.
Is the ultimate question.
Yeah, and you'll feel comfortable giving a bit more of yourself in different settings, but you know, don't try and create this persona of you in a job role, because it's exhausting and it's tiresome. People need to see the true you, and that involves you owning your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That involves you being vulnerable. That involves you going, I don't know how to do that. Should we find out together? That involves you being honest and open about your skill set too. I had an interview question once, and it was for a manager's job, and they were talking about how are you going to do this role? How are you going to make sure all these targets are met? And And I went, I'm not going to do this role. I'm not physically able to meet all those targets and do all those bits. And they looked, and I went, but as a manager, I will have a team around me who will all be able to meet those targets. And as a team, we will meet that role. And they went, does that not bother you that one of your team might be better at that bit of the job than you? I was like, nope. Because my job as a manager isn't to micromanage and do all the jobs. It's to nurture and grow the people around me to be the best versions of them. And as a team, I will lead them in the right direction. But yeah, some of them are going to be better at things than me, and they should be, because they should be.
The higher you get up in any organisation, the less you are going to know about the specifics of the groundwork. That is what your workforce is for.
Yeah.
So actually, anything they're going to have that more specific.
I would openly go, and in staff meetings, I would very much be the person that would go, right, so this person's going to deliver the training on this today, and they'd be like, I wouldn't put it on them on the day, obviously, they'd know before. And I remember at the time they were like a bit nervous about it, but I was like, oh, no, this is your specialism. I'm learning from you too. And then all of a sudden, you've got a trusting team because you're all aware of your place within it. You're all open about things. Ultimately, decisions came down to me as the leader of that team to make the decisions and drive, but I was very open about the bits that I couldn't do. And that's not that I couldn't learn how to do it, but I also didn't need to spend the time learning how to do it as well as somebody else, because I could spend that time doing it in, like, putting my time elsewhere.
That's where the trust goes both ways.
I trusted that team member to do it.
Because you've trusted them,
they'll trust you.
They'll trust you because they've seen that it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we are all in the business of trust, and I know it's a buzzword, but people talk about it very much in sales speak as well a lot, don't they? About people only buy off people. We're all in the business of trust because they trust you, they'll buy off you. But for me, it's more important than that. It's about trust within the company, the organisation,
with whoever you're working with,
because it's the only way anybody's going to grow.
Yeah.
Anything's going to grow is from trust, and it's that relationship, and it's trust comes from both people having a vested interest and a vested time in something, or all parties. It doesn't come from one person putting stuff in. So yeah,
the power of trust.
The power of trust. Yeah. So see what you can have a go at doing today, to open up those questions, open up that dialogue, open up that trust, show your vulnerability a little bit more, show them where things aren't working and you need help with it. Share a little bit about you so you've got a common ground, so they know what your values are and they trust your reasons behind decisions. See what you can do today to open up that dialogue, to build that trust.